the Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Can you believe it? It's 2016 already. I hope you had a great festive period, relaxed and ready to go for the new year. I'm sorry I've been away for 3 weeks, but it's a busy time for some of our great guests that we get on the show, and for myself. I was best man at a wedding. I was back in England to see my family, and now back in Doha celebrating the new year. And what a great year it's going to be ahead. We're going to have many more great guests that we can learn from, who are the best in the world. This week's guest is Ben Askren. I'll be getting on to exactly who he is and what he does in a short while. But one of the things we talk about a lot on this show is goal setting. And some people call this New Year's resolution. I'm going to eat less cheese. I'm going to eat less chocolate. But, I don't think New Year's resolutions necessarily work. In previous years, one thing I've been able to do is I've been lowering my intake in sugar. I used to always have 2 teaspoons of sugar for every cup of tea. A couple of years ago, I reduced it to 1. Last year, I reduced it to none. Now I can't even have any sugar anywhere near me when I have a hot drink. Oh, that was very Partridge-esque. But this year, I've got a bit more lofty goals, lofty ambitions. One of the things which I think is very crucial, and you'll hear this from previous podcasts, and I'm sure we'll hear it again on future podcasts, is your goals need to be quite accurate, and they can't just be, they have to be measurable. So a lot of the goals I'm going to mention, I've got certain things I want to achieve in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months. I'm not going to go into that much detail, but I just thought if I tell you, the listener, what my goals are, it gives me a little bit more reason, a little bit more pressure for me to be able to achieve them. So by putting them out in the public domain, you can come up to me in 6 months' time or in 12 months' time, or send me a tweet on @Richard_Parr and say, Richard, have you learnt Spanish yet? Richard, have you read 25 books? Yes, those are a couple of my goals. I want to be fluent in Spanish. Some of you may know that I spent a year in Madrid in 2005, and my Spanish was terrible. I didn't know any. It was a very difficult place to live if you didn't speak Spanish. I picked up a few words in the end, but I've forgotten quite a lot, if I'm honest. All I can really do now is order a beer, una cerveza por favor, and say to a lady, "Tu eres deslumbrante," you are dazzling. The latter didn't work. The first one did work. I was able to get a beer. That's no problem. So I find it quite embarrassing not being able to speak more than one language, being only able to speak English, and even that I do quite badly. So a real goal of mine is to speak a second language, and I've decided Spanish is the one. How am I going to do that? Well, I've already got a few books which I'm looking into. I also use the fantastic app Duolingo. Download that. It's for free. Really good lessons, which you can only spend like 10 minutes a day if you want, and you'll grow your vocabulary for that. And I think one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some time in a Spanish country, however long that may be. We'll have to see what happens later this year. But I think it's a really good place. Well, it's really important to immerse yourself in a country. I think I'm going to try Argentina because I've never been to South America, so that's a real goal of mine, to try and head to that continent. So we'll see what happens there. Another goal, speaking of South America, is to attend the 2016 Summer Olympics, which is in Rio de Janeiro. Whether that will happen with Al Jazeera, we'll have to see. I'll keep you informed on that. But, the London 2012 Olympics was such an exciting time. Really, really enjoyed the event and would love to go to Brazil once again. If I do spend time in South America, one thing I'm looking to take up is possibly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That would be one of my goals for staying in shape. It would be great to learn another skill. And there's so many classes and schools opening up around the world, be it in Brighton, be it in Doha, be it in London, be it around the world. So that's something I'm looking to do. But I'm not going to look to do that until at least the middle part of the year. This first 3 months is a bit difficult. What I am going to be doing immediately, as you may have just heard, is I am aiming to read 25 books. So that's about a book every fortnight. Try to improve my speed reading. Tim Ferriss, if you Google him and speed reading, gives a few tips, so that can help you with that if you need to do that. One book I read over the festive period was The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin. Fantastic insight into the art of learning from a high-level athlete. Josh was a chess champion, and then he took what he learned from becoming really good at chess and took it into the martial arts world. And he did competitive Tai Chi and became a world champion at that. Very fascinating insight. He's also doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. We'll try and get him on the show. I think we could all benefit from his knowledge. As well as 25 books. By the way, I'm going to try and read 12 of them by half of the year. So I'm tracking these goals. I want to listen to 12 audiobooks, which I'll be doing on audible.com. I'll be giving you a free audiobook in just a moment because, of course, Audible is one of the sponsors. 2 more goals I want to tell you about quickly. One is to be more charitable. I don't do enough for charity, so I'm going to be looking for a charity that I can donate to. But also, I want to get a charity involved in the site and in the podcast. A charity that I can direct people to. I'm looking into a few now. Hopefully, we can get that going in the next month or so. If you are interested and you think that the Best in the World with Richard Parr would be a perfect fit for your charity, then please get in touch. And finally, my last goal I want to mention to you about is I want to take up stand-up comedy. Not that I think I'm funny. I don't think I'm funny at all, actually. But I think it's such a skill, but I think it's a learnable skill. Like so many things we talk about on this show, I think with the right effort, dedication, knowledge, and teaching, you can be good at anything. Now, I speak publicly for Al Jazeera, for QPW Wrestling, on the podcasts. I did my best man speech recently. I'm very comfortable talking in front of people, but I'd like to be more funny doing it. And so I'd like to take a class of stand-up comedy, and my aim for the end of the year is to have at least done one stand-up show. If that happens, of course, I'll let you know where it is. That will add a bit more pressure, but, you know, pressure can be good at times. So those are my goals. I've got to stick to them. Please ask me about them if you see me. That puts even more pressure than I'm doing them. I'll give you an update in 3 months' time and in 6 months' time, just like I'm going to do for myself, so I can really stay in focus with my goals. And I hope you have goals for the new year. If you do, why don't you send me a tweet at Richard_Parr. Tell me what they are. I'd love to hear from you. Let's try and work together and achieve our dreams, achieve our goals. As I mentioned, one of my goals is to listen to 12 audiobooks this year. And guess what? I'm giving you the chance to listen to one audiobook for free as part of a 30-day free trial with Audible. All you have to do is go to www.audibletrial.com/best. They've got over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle or MP3 player. They've got some fantastic books. I'm going to be talking about the audiobook I recently listened to a little bit later in the show. But you really should take advantage of this. A free audiobook download. They're the best in the world at what they do. Again, the website you need to go to, www.audibletrial.com/best. So, today's show is with Ben Askren. He's an MMA star who is currently the ONE Welterweight Champion. That's mixed martial arts. He was an NCAA Division I Wrestling Champion. He won that twice. And he competed in freestyle wrestling at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Then he went into MMA. He's now with one of the leading organizations in the world in mixed martial arts. They've got a big year ahead of them. Follow them. Go to onefc.com for all the information about them. Askren is a very confident, controversial, outspoken star. This is definitely one episode you don't want to miss. Really listen to it. He talks about his goals for the year, the importance of social media, and also what it's like training WWE turned UFC star CM Punk. Now, when CM Punk decided he was going to join UFC, Askren had a few words to say about the idea of Punk going into mixed martial arts, but this was on Twitter. He put comments questioning the move, but he's now actually training Punk in amateur wrestling, and we talk about that in the podcast. One of the very interesting things that Ben talks about. So, you know what? Let's stop talking about Ben. Let's talk to Ben. He is the best in the world.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Ben Askren, welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr. You've had an amazing career in wrestling and now MMA, but one thing which stood out for me before we get on to all of that was you play disc golf, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I used to play a lot more before I had kids, but still get out to play quite a bit.
Can you just explain how that sport works? I've never heard of it before.
Disc golf, I just like golf, but the disc is a smaller frisbee, which a little more compact, and you got a tee box like in golf, and you got a goal like in golf, and you got to make it as few shots as possible.
And so, how did you get interested into that?
I had a few friends who did it, and like anything I get started in, I like being competitive, and started playing in tournaments and more tournaments, and then before you knew it, I was playing in really big tournaments, and that was it.
Didn't you come like 9th in the national championship or something like that?
I took 9th in the amateur worlds twice, and I took 2nd at the amateur nationals.
So obviously you've been a wrestler, and you're now in MMA. Were there any specific characteristics you had from the learning of wrestling and what you do now that you took into disc golf? Is there anything in particular you can pinpoint?
I would say not specifically from those athletic activities, but I mean, probably what your whole show is about is that, in my opinion, success is a skill. And once you learn how to do it in one field, if you apply the same thought process to other fields, then you're going to be successful at those also.
So with that in mind, when we talk about mixed martial arts, you need to be pretty good at a bit of everything. Do you prefer to be a jack of all trades, or do you prefer to just hone in on the one skill or two skills?
Well, I would say it's somewhere between those. I practice everything, but I also have the understanding that I'm never going to be as good at the other things as I am at wrestling, so that's my largest advantage. So I would say it's not really a jack of all trades, but it's also not I'm just focusing on one thing like, say, people in early MMA would have done. It's a mixture of both of those theories of thought.
And of course, your younger brother was also a wrestler, national champion, and you mentioned how competitive you were. How much of having a younger brother who was also good at wrestling and sports did that push you to work a little bit harder? The competition between you two.
Yeah, you know what? He didn't get super competitive at wrestling until a little later, and so it did push us when we were older, but not when we were younger, as a lot of people would assume or would think.
Okay, so where did you first get the interest in wrestling?
I did all the sports. Just a regular American kid who played a little bit of everything. I did soccer, baseball, football, basketball, wrestling. I did everything, and wrestling drew me in more than anything because of a lot of things. My combative nature, and then I really like the fact that I saw results for the work I did. Meaning it's one-on-one, and it's not like a football team where you're one of 11 people, and your efforts don't translate maybe directly to success right away.
And with that, when you took up wrestling, how important was it for you to immediately have competition, or did you wait a long time before you really had the basic skill set down?
No, I don't remember exactly. I know I wrestled in some matches in my earlier years, for say 1st through 4th grade. I wrestled in some matches, Fifth grade would be the point at which I know I started taking it seriously because I quit baseball because I wanted to wrestle more, and some of the tournaments conflicted with each other. So I would say fifth grade is the really turning point as to where I started doing more and more and more wrestling and more competitions, and really just could never get enough.
And I noticed you got a degree in geography, but how much of your studies, how much were your studies affected by your wrestling and your focus on that? Were you able to be a good student and a good wrestler at the same time, or were they unable to go hand in hand?
Well, I picked geography for the simple fact that it was something I enjoyed, and it wasn't overly difficult. Because I thought I was going to be a wrestling coach, and I am a wrestling coach, obviously, as well as a fighter right now. So I saw that as my future, and obviously there wasn't a degree path in that. So I had to pick something else. But yeah, so I did geography because and I did do well. I had like a 3.2 or something, and it was fairly easy.
Oh, fantastic! So, what was your goal when you were in your early years of wrestling, and did you achieve your personal goal in that?
I would say yes and no. I mean, I set very lofty goals for myself. Like, the three that stick out would be four-time high school state champion, four-time college national champion, and then Olympic gold medalist. And I won 2 high school state titles, and I won 2 college national titles, and I finished runner-up in the other 2 seasons. And then I obviously went to the Olympics, but I didn't get a medal. So you could definitely say I came up short on all of my goals.
But in the national championships, for example, if correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe you lost the first 2 finals, then you went on to win it twice.
Yeah.
How much did you learn from the experience of losing?
From those specific matches, I don't know about those specific matches. I can't tell you that I learned that much, but overall, from my experience in the sport, I mean, I lost hundreds and hundreds of times as a kid, as a high schooler, all the way on up, and just learning, or even in practice, when you lose, you figure out what you're not good at. If you really desire to be that good, you figure out why you're failing, and and losing helps you figure it out faster. And if you're going against competition that's subpar and you're winning easily, you're never going to figure out what your deficiencies are.
So were you never keen on giving the Olympics another go?
You know what? After '08, I had to decide between mixed martial arts and wrestling, because mixed martial arts was something I also wanted to pursue. And so I gave mixed martial arts a try, and I ended up being good at it. I can make a living at it, and so I just stuck with it.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Much more to come from Ben Askren in just a moment on the Best in the World. And one thing he does bring up is his training of UFC star, former WWE star CM Punk. Punk left the WWE in controversial circumstances and has now joined one of the biggest fight promotions in the world, the UFC, yet he's never even been in a mixed martial arts fight. So we'll have to see how he gets on and if Ben Askren's wrestling training helps him in the octagon. Now, talking of wrestling, it's been a wrestling audiobook that I've been listening to lately. That is Yes by Daniel Bryan, one of the biggest underdogs in WWE history. He was on the independent circuit for over 10 years. I actually saw him wrestle in Portsmouth, of all places. He actually hurt his shoulder. I also met him on an escalator in Houston before a Ring of Honor show. Really, really nice guy. And it was great to see his dreams come true at WrestleMania 30 when he became the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. The book is chronicling this journey, a few interesting things I didn't know, but it's also nice reading his perspective on things I've seen on TV and in public and in real life. So it's a very good book from that sense. One thing I don't like about it is they have a section of the book. Daniel reads most of it, but there's a section where they get a narrator to read through Daniel's week and leading up to WrestleMania 30. And while this is interesting, some of the language is just too flowery. It's too over the top. They refer to Daniel as the Yes Man and the Bearded One and the Tenacious Grappler. And it's just too much. It's too WWE. It's too PG. It's too ready for the kids, when actually all we want to do is learn about Daniel Bryan's story. But regardless, I would highly recommend you download it on Audible. And guess what? You can do it for free as part of the Best in the World with Richard Parr and our relationship with Audible. All you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/best for your 30-day free trial. You get a free download as part of it. All you have to do is go to www.audibletrial.com/best. Now, we've been talking about the best in the world, so let's get back to someone who certainly is that in the MMA world, the ONE Welterweight Champion, Ben Askren.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
You joined Bellator and you became champion. How did that feel in winning that in your 7th fight as a professional?
It was good. It was expected. I don't think the opponents I had at that point were. Yeah, I guess they were ranked kind of high, but I didn't view them as that good. So it was what I expected. I expected to go in and win.
What was your most challenging fight there?
In going to the title?
In Bellator, who was the most challenging opponent you had?
Well, my entire time there, I've been Jay Haran, who I won a split decision. I don't agree with the fact that it was a split decision, but it was a split decision. That would probably be my most challenging fight.
And you're now with ONE FC. How have you found the differences between the two companies and how you're enjoying your time there right now?
I haven't noticed a gigantic difference. I'm enjoying my time immensely. They're growing. Actually, I see a fair amount of similarities between Bellator and ONE, and the fact that, I saw Bellator grow from I think I started in Bellator 13, and when I left, they were in the hundreds somewhere, I believe. And so, I watched them grow up from nothing, essentially, to where they were at. And ONE is kind of a little farther along in the process, where they're already pretty big, but I still see a huge amount of growth potential in them.
And when you became world champion with ONE, had the experience from Bellator winning the title help? Do you have a different mindset when you're going for a belt, or is it just, this is a guy I have to beat regardless?
Yep, same mindset every single time.
So what is your normal routine heading into a fight, the hour before? What kind of things are you doing?
From the fight, just warming up, relaxing, getting ready to rumble. Nothing. I have no specific routines or anything like that, and I think the most important thing for me is to stay relaxed.
So there's no superstitions or anything like that?
No.
Okay, so could you ever see yourself one day competing with the UFC? Is that a goal, or are you happy with ONE?
Definitely not a goal. If it happens, it happens, which I would lean towards it's not going to happen.
Why do you think that is?
Why? Because I have a contract with ONE, and I know how much longer I want my competitive career to be, and I know what my past dealings with them were. That being the UFC, the UFC. They did a lot of things that I'm not going to talk publicly about, but they did a lot of things that they didn't treat me right. They did a lot of things that it was ugly.
So how long do you think you have left in mixed martial arts then?
Couple of years.
What have you set as targets for yourself during that time?
Just beat everybody up. That's all I can do. For the champs, just keep beating people up.
And you mentioned you're still a wrestling coach. One person I've read that you're training is CM Punk. How's he looking right now?
He's getting better. He's making a lot of progress. He kind of started off from scratch. And so we were doing a lot of work. He's getting better, and hopefully he'll get in the octagon sometime this year.
Will you be in his corner or anything like that?
If he asks me to be, I will. I'm not sure yet. It also obviously depends on my schedule and where I'm at and what I'm doing.
And you're based out of Milwaukee. What's it like being based there and the fighters there? Is it a good place for you to base everything out of?
This is where I grew up. Milwaukee's where I'm from, and so I was gone for 10 years between Missouri and Arizona, but it did feel good coming home, and I have family here and I have friends here, so it's a comfortable place. Obviously, there's a really good mixed martial arts team, so that helps everything. So everything's good, man.
That's fantastic. Now, I just want to go back to CM Punk quickly. You had questioned the UFC signing him before on Twitter, and obviously you've made friends after that. But is social media a help or a hindrance for you as an athlete?
Help. It's a huge help. I mean, anyone who says otherwise, it just means they're stupid and they don't understand how to use social media to their benefit, because social media gives athletes a gigantic upper hand over the more mainstream media and also the athletic promotions that they never had previously. Because, if I want to say something, I can say something and a lot of people are going to hear it. Whereas 20 years ago, that's not the case, right? If an athlete has a gripe, they're not going to be heard. And so social media is great for athletes.
Have you ever been censored, so to speak, from Bellator or ONE FC on anything you've said?
I don't be censored. I'm uncensorable.
And talking of being uncensored, when an opponent starts trash talking you, like for example Luis Santos even calls you a pussy and a rat, how much does that annoy you? How do you stay focused? Do you use those insults for motivation or anything like that?
I honestly don't even pay attention to what most of my opponents are saying, because the majority of them have been stupid and insignificant.
Have you ever let it get inside you at any level?
Not once in my entire life.
Okay, so you're undefeated in MMA. Do you think that run will ever end?
No.
I love the confidence. Have you always been this confident?
For most of my life, yeah. Once I learned that confidence, once I figured out that confidence was an attribute, there's no reason to stop it, right? Just keep it rolling.
Now, I'm with you there, and a lot of people then wonder what's the difference between confidence and arrogance. Do you think there's a difference?
Of course. Perception, mostly.
So 2016, what are your goals? I know you say you want to beat everyone up, but is there any person you want to face? Do you have an idea of how many times you'd like to fight this year?
I think I'm going to fight 3 times, and whoever chooses me to fight, that's who I'll fight.
Ben, if people want to get in touch with you on social media and follow your progress, how would they do that? And if there's anything else you'd like to promote, please let our listeners know.
No, just follow me on social media. It's just my name, at Ben Askren, and Facebook, Ben Askren, and I am not censored. I'll tell you exactly how I feel and what I think, almost to a fault.
Well, Ben, thanks a lot for coming on the show, and thank you for being the best in the world.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Episode 9 or episode 1 of 2016, whatever you want to call it, but it is done. Ben Askren, great chat with him. As you heard, he's a very confident individual. Keep across his fights in the ONE Championship. He is the welterweight champion. For all your details on their events, go to onefc.com. They've got some fantastic cards going on around the world, so tune into those. We're bound to have more MMA stars on the podcast later this year. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to learn from more other people who are the best in the world at what they do, go back and listen to the previous 8 podcasts. We've got rugby stars, sailing stars, swimming stars, hockey stars, football stars. They're all very fascinating people. Learn from them, get better yourself. If you want more details, head to the website richardparr.net, that's P-A-R-R, or give me a tweet at Richard_Parr, P-A-R-R. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about the podcast. This is your podcast. I know it sounds like it's all about me, but it's not. It's your podcast. Together, we want to learn from the greatest people in the world. Every week, I'll be trying new things, different things. Let's see what sticks on the wall. But if there's anything you do like or don't like, let me know. It's the only way I'm going to learn as I do this podcast for you, because ultimately that's what we're here to do, to get knowledge and to learn. And we will learn from a new person next week on the Best in the World podcast. Comes out every Wednesday on iTunes. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review. Also, you can download it on Stitcher or on the website. I've just told you the details of where to go there. Don't forget to download Audible. But for now, have a fantastic 2016, and I'll speak to you next week.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.